my name is Cheryl Erickson and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today in guidance, we're going to review Chapter 5 and planning programs to prevent discipline problems. But before I get started, just a reminder to read Chapter 5 as this video isn't a replacement for your chapter readings. So when we look at behavior problems in terms of the curriculum that we're planning as ECEs, we have to consider a few different things. And the first is that preschool children are still in that pre-operational stage of thinking. And basically what that means is that they're really only able to focus or concentrate on one thing at a time. So when there are a lot of different activities or activities going on within that play situation, it can cause a little bit of frustration. So we want to ensure that our environment is productive and it is stimulating, but not to the point of overstimulating or frustrating children. So when children are interested and they're wanting to learn something, we want to focus on those interests and foster some creativity and expand on that knowledge. So expand on the things that they're already learning and building upon that. Doing that should perhaps troubleshoot some of those behaviors. What does an appropriate curriculum look like for a preschool child? And that is basically, as ECEs, providing that age appropriate. A lot of times as educators, we're looking at providing appropriate curriculum for children in a mixed age group. So really considering skills and abilities of a 2-year-old as well as the 4- and 5-year-olds is really important. You don't want to plan activities that have goals that a 2-year-old can't meet, as well as you don't want to plan things that are too easy for an older child to do. So you have to really kind of multitask and plan things that are at different levels and different capabilities for children. You want children to actively participate and engage in that process. It should be a really good learning experience with anything that you're offering children to do. So consider that you're going to adjust that activity for the needs of the individuals. It might not just be needs, it could be developmental delays. Again, considering culture, considering age, considering maybe gender as well. Stress is a very big negative impact on how children learn. It is correlated with fewer brain cells as well. So we've talked a little bit about stress in the past and how children manage stress. We as adults learn to cope with it a little bit better, but in those early years, as those neuron and brain pathways are forming, stress can be detrimental to children in the sense that they lose the ability to function appropriately within that situation. So when we look at stress, just some statistics here, chronic stress is a problem in schools. 30 to 50% of students feel moderately to greatly stressed each day. So what that means to me is 30 to 50% of students aren't being educated appropriately every day. And it also states that research shows developmentally appropriate classes have less stress and more learning. So which really speaks to the importance of really gearing your curriculum to the development of each particular child. So you really need to individualize your curriculum because you're going to have a great variance in those ages, skills, and abilities of children that you're teaching. We really also want to work a lot with families. Families know children best. Children are strongly linked to family. Remember, that's their first really social experiences with parents as well as extended family. And they are that support system within that education process. So we can learn a lot about a child from their family, as well as we want to make that learning experience really positive. And so what information, practices that a family uses, can those be adapted within your environment as well to support that safe, secure, comfortable learning environment that's so important to the development of children. Really making those families a part of that learning process. So as many opportunities as you can, daily, weekly, monthly, even those parent-teacher types of support meetings are really important, where parents can connect with caregivers regarding that curriculum, and how important is it for parents to be a part of that planning of the curriculum. So we, as caregivers, really only see kind of that one side if we're not engaging parents in that process. We're seeing what we want as far as educational goals for the children as staff, and where the children are developmentally, but we need to consider parents' perspectives on that as well. Families are the experts on their children, and they have real life scenarios, information to share regarding their children and that education process. So families can be a part of that with any skills and abilities that they might have that they can share with us in the learning environment. When families work with teachers, kids believe school and learning are values. So it's important for children to see that connection of educators and parents as well. And that's why so many educational organizations have parents as a part of their team. So as daycare centers, we have parents that are on our board of directors that help create policies and procedures and look at our curriculum, as well as parent committees in the education process, that parents come together because they want the best education for their children in these learning environments. Relevance is a really huge part of the education process as well. So interests have a strong effect on those attitudes towards learning. And a relevant curriculum is huge because it works to benefit children, because those children are learning about topics that are happening currently in the world we live in, or right in the environment where they're learning. So we want to act upon those real life relevant experiences that are occurring in the moment. Because it's happening now, it's right there and they're reacting to them. So the more information we can give to children to increase their learning is really important. The more relevant, the more interested children are in what's taking place in their environment, the more engaged they're going to be, and the less behavioral problems we'll have. So that whole scenario about the busier children are, the less trouble that they're getting into, so to speak, is very relevant in preschool, in the preschool environment. Relevance is also interests in which affect attitudes towards learning. I think you can probably relate to times in your life where you've been presented with something that you just really aren't interested in or really don't understand. We all have things that we like or that we dislike. And so if you're disliking it or you're really not interested, you really don't want to learn about it. So we really need to spark their interest in that. And that can be, you know, curriculum that's related to topics of interest to children that affect their everyday life. things that are happening within their neighborhood. A lot of great conversations come out of construction in the summertime in childcare centers, because there's construction all around in the environment we're living in or in the daycare environments. And so children often see a lot of really neat machinery, hear a lot of very interesting sounds, and we can really build on their learning within that, which is relevant to what's happening in their environment, by labeling names of different machinery, books again, and all relevant material that you can bring into your space for children to interact with and play with. So again, we want it to be children to be active participants in their learning environment. We want to build on their knowledge. We want to build on things that they're interested in, because those experiences are going to keep them busy, and less behavioral issues will come out of that. So just regarding that conversation about summer and all the construction and how often great conversations come out of that, how can we build upon subjects like that? And so here's some examples of things that you can add to infusing the curriculum. So for example, nature is a big part of learning and what's happening outside. So you might see, in the park where the children are playing, maybe a bird has created a nest, and you see the bird is often sitting in the nest, and you have a conversation about birds with the children, and probably the bird is sitting in the nest because it's sitting on its eggs, and the eggs will hatch. So a lot of great conversations, and the concrete materials that you can add is birds. So not real life birds, but maybe bird models, or birds that you might find, different species of birds appear in the block or construction area. Then you can add nesting materials to the art area. So you're going to talk about nests and how birds build nests in your conversations outside, bringing that nesting material for children to hands-on manipulate in that art environment is really interesting for them in that experience. And then they can build different things. You don't have to tell them that they can build nests. Let the children be creative and see what comes out of that experience with those materials. Then you can add wings, tail feathers, binoculars into the dramatic play area, and play regarding birds, or maybe bird keepers or zoo. It can go in many different directions as the children apply their own creativity to that. But you're just giving them the materials to spark some different thoughts and some different creativity when it comes to their play. You can add birds photos, posters displayed around the room that teach them about the different species of birds. You might talk about how birds eat. You might talk about beaks, and we have mouths that we put food in and we chew. How does a bird eat food? What types of food do they eat? So we would, again, talk about that and find resources and materials that would teach children a little bit more in depth about how birds eat. You may add, again, to your math area by even having charts and comparisons about birds. You can even put bird seed in your math area, and the kids can measure and weigh bird seeds on scales. So that's another interesting concept that you could add in to an area to spark further thought and growth and development. And then a really neat opportunity too is outside your windows to put bird feeders. So different types of bird feeders, like hummingbird feeders, feeders with bird seed, and then you're attracting different birds to your playground. So maybe children are going to start seeing different species of birds that they can compare to some of the posters and pictures and maybe books you have in your environment. So it's really taking it to the next level and building on the birds. And that was just simply because a bird decided to build a nest in the playground where the children were playing, and it went into that direction, and now they're learning about real life birds in the environment that we live in. And it's sparking some thoughts and creativity. So also note that things can change direction relatively quickly. You can be focusing a lot on birds, but then something else happens within your environment, and maybe it's some vegetables are starting to grow in the garden that you planted, and so you may be doing some different activities about growing vegetables as well. So it's all, in the moment types of things that are happening in the environment, and that's okay. Some things tend to change direction, and we want to keep the children interested in the birds, while other children might be getting interested in a different type of topic. But it's really cool when it comes from relative or relevant experiences or play that you see children participating in, and you want to build on that because you know that they're excited about it, and that what additional supports via materials you can provide really will add to the value of that play. So just regarding active learning, it does promote lifelong skills. That curiosity and exploration that they're having within that moment is going to teach them something about life cycle. It could be self-help needs, but those skills will remain as long as, throughout life. Those thought processes where they can hypothesize and guess what happens, and then see a concrete explanation or a concrete experiment unfold in front of them, that either their prediction is right or their prediction is wrong, is really cool as well. So science experiments are really great that you do with children. And something simple as water and color, where you have clear water and then I'm going to add a drop of food coloring, and it's red food coloring. What color is the water going to turn? Is it going to turn a red, or is it going to be pink at first and then we add another drop? What's going to happen? What happens if we add a drop of blue food coloring to the red? So children are going to tell you their thoughts. They're going to make predictions about what's happening. They'll learn that if you mix blue and red together, that it changes to a different color, and what color is that? So it's really cool when you can have children be active participants in that learning experience, because it's very much more meaningful to them when it's a hands-on type of activity. Organizational strategies, so making sure that when you're planning that age-appropriate curriculum, that it is fostering development in all four of those developmental domains. So physical, intellectual, emotional, social is what we're looking at as far as the acronym of PIES, to meet the developmental needs of all children. Really think about how you're transitioning children into activities. It's always good to have an energy release before they sit down to do something that just kind of releases that energy, allows them to focus. It's always really good to have a snack too before you get into something, a sit-down activity. You want children to have a full tummy so that they're able to concentrate on the activity. Avoid making children wait, so have things that are hands-on. Waiting is a non-productive activity for children. It also increases the opportunities for issues to arise. Typically, when children are put in situations where they have to wait, their hands get the best of them, and they're touching and poking and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. If their hands are kept busy, you'll have positive outcomes. Things like group sizes is really important. Following your regulations. the smaller the group, the more successful that activity is going to be, because it allows the caregiver to do a little bit of one-on-one. So your maximum group size, and your ratio, if it's preschool, should be 1 to 8. For a small hands-on activity, that's really good. If you get any more than 8, it gets to be a little bit hard for children, especially when it involves taking turns, and that adds waiting time to it. Maximum group size in Manitoba is 16, and 16 is good for things like reading a story, where they're going to be engaged by a book. There's no waiting time and waiting their turn. So being, mindful of things like that, because it's really important that children are successful in that, and they're going to want to come back and participate in an activity. If your transitions aren't good and they are getting into some trouble, or they're having some behavior problems, it's going to be a negative experience. So we want to make that a positive experience. Also remember to give children warnings. Warnings prepares them for what's happening next, gives them time to adjust to that transition that's going to be taking place. If you just randomly tell a child to stop doing what they're doing and it's something fun that they're enjoying, there could be behavioral issues that come out of that. So it's not really conducive to setting a child up for success. Rest times are really important for children as well, especially in the preschool age. So just knowing your individual child's routine, the signs that they are getting tired and might need a rest are really important. Kids are often tired after a very rigorous type of activity. And so, you're after a rigorous activity, when you're transitioning to the next thing, maybe it should be a sedate, sit down, or quiet. If you're outside running and it's they're doing relay races or some type of obstacle course, when you come in from outside, maybe a good transition is a story as well. Also to avoid naps immediately after lunch. And so why that is because lunch is about a half an hour, 45-minute period of time where children are basically sitting and sedate and eating. And so from lunch, you want to transition them into something that's a little bit active, maybe a little bit of free play, and then a transition to a quiet time, opposed to having children sit for a half an hour, 45 minutes, and then transitioning them to sleep for another hour or two. So just breaking up those times and allowing for active as well as some quiet play sets children up for more success. Daily routines are very, very important too. So we should have a daily schedule that sets a predictable routine of a sequence of events. So children learn through those transitions and those sequences of events what's always happening next. That's how their day is broken down. So I arrive at daycare, I have snack, then we go outside and we play, we have lunch, we have nap, we have outdoor play, and then mom comes to pick them up, or mom comes to pick me up. That's basically how children gauge their day, and that's how they learn to tell time throughout the day as well. Group times is really important too when you set up the structure of your day, because group time is a very social component in your day. And so group time really sets the tone of knowing where your place is, knowing some rules about how to act within a group situation. Group times are very common in school. And so why we as ECEs develop group time in daycare centers is because it allows or teaches children what to expect and how to act in that group situation, so they know what's expected of them at school. So in group times, we want to make those moments where we gather together to be interesting to children. We want to introduce new things to them, new materials, new games, new stories, active types of activities where it's teaching them a new song, those types of things. We want to prepare them for maybe changes of events. So maybe the start of your day is we gather before snack and we have a group time. We sing a song, we read a story, and then we talk to the children about what we're going to do today. So if there's any changes in that routine, we're now preparing the children for those changes, which again sets them up for success because routine is very, very important. So you should always have a set type of structure to that group time, making children as a big part of it. So maybe you have a child that picks the story for the day. Maybe you have leaders that help do with different tasks. And so you talk about that at group time as well. So it's not only giving some instructions about the day, but it also allows for opportunities to build on children's interests too. Show and tell is always a big part of group times, and something that children really get excited about is when it's their turn to share at show and tell. So that does conclude Chapter 5 of Guidance and Planning Your Programs for Effective Discipline or Behavior Management problems. If you have any questions, please do see your instructor. Also, just to check in to ensure that you haven't missed any handouts or assignments pertaining to Chapter 5.